In my King of Fighters 14 review, I pointed out how despite the game lacking graphics-wise, it was the character animations for challenging gameplay and the presentation that left a great impact for me. And the super moves in this game still look bloody awesome. Those ones definitely leave an impact on me, and that's going to be the key word for this discussion of mine, impact. To help me explain this in the best way I possibly can, I'm going to be using different characters from different fighting games and show you, despite all fighting games being similar in concept, the way the fighting game actually sells you on the impact of a character's strike is equally as important as the fighting itself. So I'll give a big thank you and shout out to Sugar Punch Design Works YouTube channel, who are the inspirations for this video. Now, I'm no animation major like ABI, nor am I as clever as Magikura when it comes to rewriting and fixing something, but I do know a little bit about throwing a punch and how it leaves an impact. Speaking of which, let's talk the art of impact.
Round 4. Fight. Perfect.
Well, he's dead.
Now, I should clarify that because there are some people who will care about this, there is a key difference between both strength and power. And for the most part, fighting games do very well to show you the difference. Take for example my main man Geese Howard in Tekken 7. He is a character who is very powerful, who also just happens to be really strong. Characters like She-Hulk and the Hulk on the other hand, they are characters who are ridiculously strong. Now yes, they have gamma radiation flowing through their body, but it's very clear that a lot of what they do comes from their ridiculous muscle power and not internal power. Now I could go on all day about categorizing characters that fall under the move bitch get out the way or I'm gonna run you over like a damsel tied to the train tracks character. Trademark don't steal. I'll do my best to try and keep this brief by talking about 4 characters I've loved playing recently: Gigas, Dali Dagger, Broly, and Shao Kahn. When Gigas was first revealed back in 2015, the reception was some people liked him, some people didn't. And that's mainly because he was originally meant to be Craig Marduk's replacement before they put Marduk back in the game. Now I know a few people, myself included, that actually really like Gigas, even though we still like Marduk too. Now, I will fully admit that Marduk is the better character, but Gigas on his own is still good, and he definitely does feel strong. In the hands of a good player, he quite literally leaves an impact on his opponent. The way this character is designed definitely helps with that. One move that separates him from the rest of the roster is his Golem Charge. With this move he can do several different punches and a body slam, but the way he goes about it, I love how the game makes it so that with every step he takes, there's a big screen shake, further emphasizing that he weighs a ton. And even when he hits the opponent on block, they still go flying, and if he hits them on block during his rage drive, they can't get away, they are forced to take the hit. Now this game can pretty much make any hit sound impactful, but thanks to the look of Gigas, it's what really helps sell the feel of his strikes. Fun fact, a Tekken 7 character designer actually said that Gigas was one of the harder characters to animate because of all his crazy muscle definition. And you can definitely tell the designers went out of their way to really sell you on his most valuable assets. When Gigas throws his whole body at you and you get hit, the game lets you know that you're not getting hit by a Craig Marduk clone, you're getting hit by a giant crazy steroid-induced golem. A big bastard with lots of strength and lots of power. If that doesn't leave an impact, I don't know what does. Oh yeah, one more thing. Any rage art that hits medium, Gigas can jump over it and smack you with his dick. That is hilarious.
Boom! Shakalaka! All of you better duck, and I don't want to smack you with my dick.
売られた喧嘩は買う主義でね。覚悟してくれよ。
That intro right there basically sums up everything you need to know about Dali Dagger. Does she look strong? Yup. Does she sound strong? Yep. And most importantly, does the gameplay of Samurai Showdown complement those aspects enough to make her feel strong? Well, that is a definite 100% yes. Absolutely. I could just leave it right there for Dali and be done with it, but because this is a video where I'm trying to sound clever, I'll go into a little more detail about Dali's design, and how it helps leave an impact on the player, and quite literally leaves a devastating impact on the opponent. Her clothes don't just show us that she's strong, but also allows her to freely express that strength to its fullest, further emphasized by the fact she carries around the sword the size of a shark like a broomstick. But it doesn't stop there, because the SNK developers know that making a large character with large muscle and giving them a large weapon isn't enough to sell you on the feeling of strong. If that was all it took, then any big body type character could fall into the move bitch get out the way and I'm gonna run you off the edge without that character. Take a look at Samurai Showdown's largest character, Earthquake. He's 11 feet 2 inches tall and has a giant chain flail weapon. But he's a ninja. He learnt ninjutsu first and got fat second. On top of breathing fire, he also uses quick ninja vanishing strikes with deceiving speed to trick the opponent. Combine that with his large frame makes him a bit more difficult to dodge. Despite his size and attitude, you can see through his gameplay that Earthquake is falling back on some formal training that he remembers very well. But Dali, she don't know Kung Fu, she only knows ass kick. And while a character having more than one weapon is nothing new to a fighting game, Dali's unique take on this is that her weapons are just her work equipment. So yeah, she's not a pirate, she's a carpenter. And like most carpenters, she has a habit of carrying her tools with her everywhere she goes, and doing that a lot will build you up a lot of natural strength. Strength that Dali clearly has a lot of. If you want to feel the full impact of Dali, unless you're the opponent, look no further than her knockout punch. This is easily one of the strongest moves in the game, right next to Yoshitara's giant sword commando slash special move. When you combine this with Dali's other damaging moves that stun the opponent, the damage is absolutely friggin' massive. So yep, if you want a character that makes quite an impact, look no further than Dali Dagger from Samurai Showdown. She's strong, and good fucking hell I love that punch.
Some real muscle.
Making a character stand out as the powerhouse of the group in a game like Dragon Ball Z is a bit of a challenge. Is what I would be saying if it weren't for the fact that Arc System Works were a bunch of fighting game gods. I mean, heck, there's a god on screen right now. But anyway, what do they do to make Broly stand out from the rest of the cast as being the one that's the big bully type character that makes a giant impact? Well, for a start, he's got armor on both his heavy and his medium attacks. And while doing combos with him is completely possible like other characters, a lot of Broly's best damage actually comes from well-timed counter-hit strikes. Speaking of which, not only is Broly's my personal favorite auto combo in the game, but it's one of the better auto combos amongst the roster. especially since the last hit is a grab. Neat. And lastly, look at him. He's friggin' huge. Now yeah, everyone in Dragon Ball has massive bodies and they're all ripped to shreds, but look at Broly compared to Android 16. He's friggin' massive. So yeah, obviously he's not the only beast in this game, but let's have a look at him in comparison to the other beastie type characters in this game, Android 16 and Cooler. Take a listen to just how they walk. Have a look and listen to the sounds they make. You can feel the impact of every step he takes, and this is just a walk cycle. But that right there is more than enough to let you know that Broly is the guy who's all like,
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry, bitch.
That right there is definitely a success of conveying that he is a massive beast. Even with the expanded Dragon Ball universe and Broly now being canon, it's pretty clear that this classic Broly still leaves an impact. And his air heavy is him shoving your face into the ground. I bloody love it.
Get ready. Get ready. Really challenge me. I'll put you out of your misery. Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool! You want to lead my armies?
Good luck finding anyone better.
A street urchin would do better.
On top of this being the most fun Mortal Kombat game that I've played in a while, this is easily my favorite version of Shao Kahn amongst all the games he's been in. In Mortal Kombat 9, he of course was the boss, but you couldn't play as him unless you modded the game. I definitely was not the only one who was eager to hurry up and play this impactful asshole. Wow, that sounded wrong. Well, anyway, what does this game do differently for Shao Kahn? Well, quite a lot. Back in the old days, he could only throw one punch and one kick. And yeah, he was a boss, that kinda made sense because he did massive damage. Outside of that, he also had his spear, his hammer, and his shoulder charge. But for 3D games, didn't really do much for him. He still had the look to come across as a strong evil emperor, but in the 3D Mortal Kombat games, the one I remember most being Armageddon, rather than looking strong, the awkward animations made him look clumsy and stupid. When the older games tried to balance Shao Kahn, it didn't feel like Shao Kahn, he felt like a regular character. And when you play as Shao Kahn, you don't want to feel like a regular character. So, how do you balance Shao Kahn to be a normal character on the roster, while also trying to convey that he's an evil, overpowered overlord? Well, the obvious solution: make that hammer of his a normal part of his moveset. With his hammer constantly in hand, that is immediately your first key point of interest when it comes to Shao Kahn. He's holding the hammer the entire time, carrying it around like it's nothing. And that hammer is not light, it's pretty fucking heavy. And of course this is Shao Kahn holding it, so you know it's gonna do some devastating damage. So Mortal Kombat 11 is already doing way more for Shao Kahn than what MKX and Injustice 2 did for Goro and Darkseid. The animations in this game with Shao Kahn and his hammer look really damn smooth. Ignoring that Mortal Kombat X made his hammer interactable, in this game it really does feel like that hammer can only be swung by Shao Kahn. And the way his hammer animates with his combos into his specials, they transition really smoothly, further complementing the art form that is Shao Kahn swinging his hammer. Seriously, he dances around with that thing like any other character would with their own unique weapon, but with Shao Kahn and his hammer, it comes across as being a lot more impressive because that hammer weighs more than most of the characters in this game. And the fact that he can jump around normally with it and swing that hammer around further emphasizes just how strong Shao Kahn really is. Again, ignoring what Katana did to him in the story mode. I mean, that moment was still cool, but you know what I mean. But still, Shao Kahn is a badass with that hammer, and I love it. He feels like an apology for the past animation for Injustice 2, and for some of Mortal Kombat X's animations as well, because in this game he definitely does feel like a massive beast that swings around a giant hammer that can take your head off with one swing. With Mortal Kombat 11 being unique for blending its cinematic animation and in-game animation thanks to the awesome crushing blow, this really does help emphasize Shao Kahn to be the one true Khan.
You suck! Finish him!
Hammer time!
These four characters have quickly become my favorites for how well they all embody the whole move bitch get out the way, yeah, you get the idea already. Similar functions aside, each character is represented very well through their gameplay thanks to developers paying close attention to what makes them unique. So, in that regard, I feel that each one of them gets a triple thumbs up for what they do to show the perfect balance between look strong, sound strong, and feel strong. So yep, I definitely like these characters. But, for as good as all that is, there are some that just can't do it as well as these ones. But don't worry, this is still fairly positive. After all, you can only make improvements by acknowledging your mistakes. And believe me, I make a lot. So we're still closing out this video on a fairly positive note. So let's get to it. Yay, I get to talk more about games I really enjoy playing. And I'm going to start out with the Injustice games, and then move on to Mortal Kombat X. Apologies in advance for having no gameplay for Mortal Kombat 9. I have Injustice 1 because this is the PS4 version. I would love to record MK9, but unfortunately I don't have a capture card. So, ooh, wait, hold on, I really like this part. I will never get tired of seeing that. So if you couldn't tell, I really love still playing these games. But around the time I did play these, when I was a child, I didn't really see the many animation issues that so many people have pointed out. But of course now, because I've expanded out and played so many other fighting games, I definitely can pick up on them a lot better. That being said though, my main issue with these games isn't really the animation, it's more the music. Music is supposed to be very impactful and get you hype in a game, and these games just seem to lack that. But I'm not focusing on music, I'll just focus on character animations. So for the Injustice games, I'm going to be focusing mainly on Bane and Superman. You'll see why in a moment.
Humpty Dumpty fell through a truck. Humpty Dumpty's suit is all...
Love the color.
A fighting game where you can play as Superman? Yes please. I like Superman. The good one. The evil one can get fucked. But, for as cool as Superman is, because of these games and the way they are presented, it does take away a bit of his impact. I wish that the character balancing in the gameplay also was as balanced as the facial animations. If they were, we'd have a near perfect fighting game. But, going on about Superman's impact, well, he animates well and he does play well, sometimes, but he is a flying character, so that does make things a bit harder for the animators. But my main issue with Superman is knowing what to exaggerate with him, because that's very difficult considering he's fucking Superman. I mean, realistically, if anyone was to get hit by him in these games, it'd look a little something like this. It almost feels like, in my opinion, that not just Mortal Kombat, but other fighting games, by default, already have an advantage over Injustice because of this. There isn't really any other characters in any other games that have the level of power that Superman does. However, there is one thing I would have loved for the Injustice games to do, and I mainly feel this after playing Dragon Ball FighterZ, and that's pulling from the different shows and movies that these characters have been in to use as references for their gameplay. I think that would have worked a lot, especially for Superman. Darkseid, despite his many issues, has one of the best supers in the game, and it feels just right for the character. The same thing can be said about Supergirl. She arguably has the best super move in the whole game, so it makes sense for them to be on par with Superman. But someone like Bane? He definitely should not feel stronger than Superman, even though he's a massive beast. Superman in the first Injustice game has one of my favourite supers. I remember back when they first showed this game off in, I think it was 2012, everyone laughed at this one because it also has a good amount of humour and the right amount of exaggeration. But the second game, on the other hand, doesn't work as well, and that's mainly because it's pulling from the Man of Steel movie, and we all know how people feel about that. So, here's what I decided to do. I decided to take both of these supers and make a few little audio edits to them to try and give them a bit more impact. The first one, not so much, but I tinkered around with the second one just a little bit more. Have a look and tell me what you think.
Disappoint me. Don't disappoint me.
Pretty shit editing, but it's the best I can do. But now, let's take a look at Bane. I love the way Bane looks in Injustice 1, and that's mainly because, well, he looks like Bane. His body's got the right proportions, he's got his veins busting out of his skin, the venom tank on his back, everything about him looks good. But in Injustice 2, they dropped all of that, and now he just looks like a generic soldier wearing some type of tank on his back. I mean, yeah, it does still look kind of like Bane, but it does take away a lot of what makes him Bane, mainly because, well, he's fully clothed. Look at him. He barely looks like Bane. He looks more like the soldiers you see in the background of these games. That change in look is what makes him lose his impact on a lot of his moves. Well, that and this dumb little issue where his back faces the camera after he charges at you. In the first game, it actually does look like a giant steroid monster that's running at you. And look, he even faces the right way after he's finished. And remember what I said about knowing what to exaggerate? Well, Bane's super moves in Injustice 1 and 2 are a perfect example of this. Take a look at the first one. A simple, but effective and very fitting super for Bane, and you can tell by the character's face, whether they're wearing armor or not, that definitely looks painful. The second super though, taking your opponent into the air and smashing them, that's fine, but it doesn't feel as impactful because we know how high they are. They are pretty much at the normal height that a character jumps at by themselves, but we still get these anime speed lines like they're a meteor coming from space. But it doesn't work. And the main reason for that, we know how high they are. They're like 15-20 feet in the air. It's not that impressive. Take a look at Waldstein. When he does his regular command throw, he jumps up to about the same level that we saw Bane do just a moment ago. But Waldstein still comes across as being more impressive. Now, take a look at his Resonance Level 2. When the super starts, the background shatters, giving off the impression that you are within the realm of the character who's beating the shit out of you. So, a sense of scale doesn't really matter because we already know where they are. You are in a dangerous place. Injustice may have better graphics, but that doesn't matter when you have a character like Waldstein that can do this.
Heaven is the earth, but a sea in the sky.
Under Night in Birth may have the screen shaking when Wildstein descends to the ground and when he shoves his opponent's face into the ground, but the one from BlazBlue I like a bit more because they're fucking dead, their bodies vaporized. For as great as the super moves in Injustice are, my favourite being the Ninja Turtles, all the supers in this game get brought down by one thing: the characters getting back up off the ground. Because of that, they immediately lose their impact. Now let's talk about MKX. I may not like this one as much as MK11 or even MK9, but there's a lot of things done right in this game to give you a sense of impact. The X-rays of course being a prominent example, but even just the normal hit effects stand out over the other NetherRealm games. I've always liked the way they sounded, they're nice and chunky. Oh yeah, Tor's charge move. Let's talk about that. I know I've talked about a lot of them, but they're my favourite move. Shut up. Now, Tor has multiple different versions of his charge in this game. One where he does one by himself, and the other where he uses Farah like a battering ram. I like the battering ram one better because, well, this is a MK game, so I'm going to talk about awkward animation. When he's running by himself, for some reason, he lifts his leg up to kick you at the end of his run. Doesn't really look normal. But I do like the charge he does when he's got Farah on his back, because with that one he just runs straight through you, but I also like the startup. If he does this move close, he swings Farah, knocking you to the ground, but after he does that, he smoothly transitions to swinging Farah under his arm to go on his back. Tor has several moves where he slams Farah on the ground, and I thought this move was one of them, but nope, it's a smooth swing where it's just one motion, and she goes underneath his arm, then on his back. Good job, I actually like that a lot. So Tor mows you down in a very similar way that Bane does in Injustice 1 and 2. And while I still think the first design is better, the second game still pulls that off very well. So my issue with Tor's charge is more of a nitpick, because the second version is way better as opposed to when he's doing it by himself. Another thing I also found with Mortal Kombat as opposed to Injustice, the impact seems a bit more consistent across the Mortal Kombat games. And when you put a Mortal Kombat character in the Injustice games. Let's use Raiden as an example. Take a look at his super moves from each game: Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat X, and Injustice 2. While each impact is different across all games, they all still feel like they have the right amount of impact because of what they exaggerate with Raiden being the God of Thunder. Check it out. In the first one, he beats the shit out of you, electrocutes you, and bleeds your stomach all at once. In MKX, he takes you to the sky and shocks you with thunder. And then the dragon. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Injustice 2 has the best one by far, and is arguably the best super in Injustice 2. And he's a Mortal Kombat character. And with that, I think it's about time I drew this video to a close. Whew, if you managed to sit through this from start to finish, thank you so much for watching. This has been The Art of Impact. Once again, a big thank you to Sugar Punch Design Works, who are the inspirations for this video. I hope that everything I pointed out was informative and you weren't confused. And if you were confused, sorry. Anyway, that about wraps that up. Thank you so much once again. I will catch you folks later. Sweet as. Kakite.
Don't think that I can knock you out. It's over.